Every love story has a moment that changes everything, and sometimes it happens when you least expect it. On a quiet, rainy night in the backseat of a taxi, or inside an apartment where two people who thought they understood each other suddenly realize there's something deeper between them. This is a story about courage, vulnerability, and the kind of connection that appears quietly without warning. It's about a young man who never imagined his boss, confident, composed, and seemingly out of reach, would reveal something that would tie their lives together forever. What started as a simple act of kindness became the beginning of something neither of them could. Rain had been falling all evening, soft against the neon lights of the city. I sat in the dim corner of a lounge, my tie loosened and the last glass of soda water slowly melting in my hand. Most of my colleagues had already disappeared, some heading home early, others drifting into after-parties that would end in headaches and questionable messages the next morning. But not him. My boss, Daniel Hart, was still at the bar. Even in exhaustion, he carried himself with calm confidence, laughing with the few people who still clung to the night. His laugh carried through the room, the same laugh you might hear in a boardroom after closing a deal. It was warm, magnetic, the kind that made you want to be part of the moment, to be seen by him. I shouldn't have been starring, but I was. Daniel was everything I was, confident, effortlessly charming, with that quiet authority that made people listen without him ever raising his voice. At work he was sharp suits and precise words. Here, under soft lighting and the haze of alcohol, he felt almost human. His tie hung loose, his shirt collar unbuttoned, and his cheeks were slightly warm from whiskey. And yes, he was definitely drunk. I checked my phone long past midnight. I should have left hours ago, but something about the sight of him slouched over the bar kept me rooted to my seat. Maybe it was loyalty, maybe concern, or maybe it was the truth I carried silently in my chest. I liked him more than I should. Ethan. His voice cut through the low lighting. His blue-gray eyes found me instantly. Come here, will you? I swallowed, smoothing my wrinkled sleeves as I walked toward him. Yes, sir. He waved a hand, dismissing the word. Sir, no, it's past midnight. Tonight I'm just Daniel. His grin was lazy, softer than I had ever seen at work. I laughed nervously. All right, Daniel, I think you've had enough. Had enough? He tipped back the last of his drink with dramatic flair, then set the glass down hard. Never, but... He leaned closer, the scent of whiskey and cologne wrapping around me. Maybe you're right, my head's already spinning. The bartender gave me a sympathetic look, silently handing me responsibility. I sighed, come on, let's get going. His eyebrows lifted playfully. You're taking me home, that's dangerous. Dangerous for whom? I asked, half joking, half touched. For you, he whispered, and something in his tone tightened my chest. The cab ride was quiet at first. Daniel leaned against the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. His breathing was soft and uneven, like he was fighting sleep. Then he spoke. You're a good guy, Ethan. His voice was low, almost reflective. You always look out for everyone, I notice that, you know. You notice? I asked, surprised. His eyes met mine in the reflection. More than I should. The words stayed between us, heavy and confusing. My heart beat fast. Was this the liquor talking or something else? By the time we reached his building, a sleek high-rise that mirrored his success, I still didn't know what to think. I paid the driver and helped Daniel out. He was heavier than he looked, leaning on me without hesitation. His apartment was spotless, all clean lines and expensive taste. I helped him onto the couch where he collapsed with a sigh. Water, I muttered, heading to the kitchen. When I returned, he sat slouched, his tie crooked. His expression was softer than ever, unguarded. Why are you so kind to me? He asked suddenly. I froze. Because you're my boss and you needed help. No. He shook his head, voice firm despite the alcohol. It's more than that, you care, you actually care, no one does that for me. I placed the glass on the table, my chest tightening. You deserve it, I said quietly. He studied me for a long moment, then. Ethan, he whispered, if I tell you something, promise you won't walk away. My breath caught. I promise. The room fell silent except for the hum of the city and the soft patter of rain against the tall windows. I stood still, the untouched glass between us, my heart beat loud in the quiet. Daniel's gaze held mine. For the first time since I'd known him, he wasn't the polished, confident leader everyone admired. he wasn't untouchable, he wasn't distant. He was human, vulnerable. Real. What is it? I finally asked. He exhaled slowly, dragging a hand down his face as if bracing himself. I shouldn't tell you this, not tonight, not like this. Then don't, I whispered, you don't owe me anything. But I want to. His eyes lifted to mine, sharp even through the haze. And what he said next would change everything. Because I didn't know if I would have the courage tomorrow. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my breathing steady. Okay, then tell me. For a moment, he didn't move. His hand rested loosely on his knee, his expression unfocused but honest. Then, in a voice barely louder than a breath, he said, I like you, Ethan, more than I should, more than I've ever let myself admit. The words hit me like thunder, my world tilted, I blinked, convinced I'd misheard. What? He let out a shaky laugh, but there was no humor in his eyes. I know, completely inappropriate, right? The boss liking his employee sounds like the start of a scandal. I couldn't breathe, my mind raced through every late meeting, every shared glance, every moment I'd secretly hoped meant something more. You're drunk, I whispered, my voice trembling, you don't mean that. But he leaned forward, his fingers brushing mine on the couch cushion, warm, intentional. I mean it, he murmured. I've been trying not to for months, but sitting across from you every day, watching the way you care, the way you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention, Ethan, it's impossible not to feel it. My pulse roared in my ears. He had noticed all along. I don't know what to say, I admitted softly. Say you don't feel the same, he said, his jaw tightening, voice raw. Say that and I'll drop it forever. But I couldn't lie. I do feel the same, I confessed, the words escaping like something I'd held back for far too long. His eyes widened, startled, almost disbelieving. I've tried to hide it, I continued. Because you're my boss, because it felt impossible, but Daniel, I like you too, more than I should. Silence settled between us, thick, charged, alive. His hand slid closer, brushing mine again, this time with certainty. You don't know what you've just done to me, he whispered. Then tell me. And then he kissed me. It wasn't rushed or messy, not careless. It was slow, careful, like he was asking a question with his lips, waiting for my answer. I answered. My hand lifted to his jaw, feeling the faint roughness of stubble beneath my palm. His lips tasted faintly of whiskey, but beneath that was something electric, something real. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathless. His forehead leaned against mine, his hand resting gently at the back of my neck. This isn't a mistake, he whispered. Tell me it's not. It's not, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But as the minutes passed, reality crept in. He was still my boss. I was still his employee. The invisible line we had crossed hung between us like a shadow. Daniel, I said carefully, what happens now? He leaned back, dragging a hand through his hair. I don't know, he admitted. I didn't plan this, I just couldn't hold it in anymore. I sat beside him, twisting my fingers in my lap. We can't let this ruin everything, your career, mine. I know. His eyes softened. But I also know I don't want to pretend anymore, not with you. The sincerity in his voice almost broke me. We'll figure it out, I whispered. Promise me something, Ethan. His gaze locked onto mine, steady despite the alcohol. Don't run from this, don't run from me. I won't, I said, surprised by how certain I sounded. Later, when he drifted asleep on the couch, I sat quietly beside him. His hand rested near mine, his breathing slow and steady. I expected guilt, fear, panic. I felt none of it. Instead, I felt a quiet, aching relief. For the first time, the feelings I'd buried had a place to belong. Still, as I pulled a blanket over him and whispered good night, a question gnawed at me. Would he remember in the morning? And if he did, would he regret it? Dawn crept into the room in pale gold. I woke to the sound of rustling and lifted my head from the armchair. My neck ached. Daniel stood by the window, a mug of fresh coffee in hand. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair a little tousled, but he looked like himself again, calm, composed, sober. Panic rushed through me. Did he remember? Morning, I croaked. He turned for a heartbeat, something softened in his eyes. Morning, Ethan. I sat up straighter. How's your head? He chuckled quietly, sore but manageable. He hesitated, then added quietly, I remember everything. My breath caught. I meant what I said, he continued, voice steady. None of it was just the whiskey. Relief and fear tangled inside me. So what now? He set his mug down and walked toward me, slowly, like he was afraid I might pull away. When he stopped in front of me, his gaze held mine, gentle, cautious, but resolute. Now, he said softly, we go one step at a time, carefully, honestly, no games. My chest tightened with something dangerously close to hope. Okay, I whispered. When he reached for my hand, warm, solid, certain, I didn't pull away. That morning, as the city awakened beyond the glass, something settled quietly between us. A beginning. A risk. A promise. And even though I didn't know where it would lead, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I wasn't going to run. Monday at the office felt suffocating. Everything looked normal, emails pinging, printers humming, phones ringing, yet everything inside me felt different. Every glance, every word, every time Daniel walked by my desk, the air shifted. And he walked by often. Morning, Ethan, he said casually, his voice pitched low enough that only I could hear. His eyes lingered just a second too long. Morning, sir, I replied automatically, my throat dry. His lips twitched. Daniel, he corrected under his breath. I forced a polite smile as my coworkers moved around us, unaware. To them, he was the calm, respected leader of the office. No one would ever guess that just 2 nights ago, I had kissed him while the rain beat softly against the glass of his penthouse. The memory made my pulse race, but it also lit a spark of anxiety. In my chest, what if someone noticed? What if our secret slipped? I spent the morning buried in reports, avoiding his gaze when he led meetings, but every so often our eyes met across the boardroom table, and a silent current hummed. Between us, it was intoxicating and terrifying. That evening, after most of the team had left, I lingered at my desk, pretending to finish paperwork. The office was quiet, the skyline outside painted. Twilight blues, a shadow fell across my desk. You're still here, Daniel's voice. He saw, I looked up, forcing a small smile. You are too, he leaned against the edge of my desk, his tie loosened just slightly, his sleeves rolled up. The sight made my heart skip. I was hopping. We could talk, he said, my throat tightened. Here, his lips curved. No. Upstairs, the company's top floor was mostly executive suite, quiet after hours. My nerves buzzed as I followed him into his office, the door clicking shut behind us. The air shifted instantly. No prying eyes, just him, just us. He turned, his expression softer than I'd ever seen in daylight. I hated today, he admitted. I frowned. Why? Because I had to pretend. His jaw tightened. Pretend I don't want to be near you. Pretend I don't watch the way you furrow your brow when you concentrate. Pretend I didn't kiss you 2 nights ago and feel like the ground shifted under my feet. Heat flooded my chest. Daniel, he stepped closer, his voice dropping. Tell me you felt it too. I did, the confession tumbled out. Breathless, I've never stopped thinking about it. Relief flickered in his eyes. He reached out, his fingers brushing mine. The touch was fleeting, restrained, but it sent a jolt through me. We're playing with fire, I whispered. Then let's be careful, he replied. I'm not asking for a scandal. I'm asking for honesty between us. I exhaled, my resolve crumbling. Okay, and then in the hush of his office, he pulled me into his arms. The embrace was grounding, steady, not the reckless kiss of the other night, but something gentler, a promise tucked into the curve of his shoulder. For a moment, the world outside didn't exist. Over the next few weeks, our lives became a delicate dance. At work, we were professional, boss and employee, nothing more, but in stolen moments, the mask slipped, a lingering glance over coffee, a brush of fingers when he handed me a file, a midnight text that simply read, thinking of you. And when late nights blurred into dawn, I sometimes found myself in his apartment again, never crossing the line into something physical but sharing quiet dinners, whispered laughter, and the kind of closeness I never dared dream of. It was intoxicating, and it terrified me because with every secret smile, the risk grew heavier. The first crack came on a Thursday afternoon. Was reviewing a project with Olivia, one of my teammates, when Daniel walked by. He paused, offering a comment about the design draft, his tone Perfectly neutral, but I caught the flicker of something in his eyes when Olivia laughed at my joke. Later, in the elevator, he stood too close, his jaw set. You and Olivia seem friendly, he remarked. I blinked. She's my coworker. His eyes narrowed slightly. She laughs at everything you say. I stared at him, stunned. Are you jealous? The elevator doors opened. He didn't answer, just strode out with clipped steps. That night he didn't text me. The silence stretched into the weekend. I paced my apartment, torn between frustration and longing. He'd been the one to push for honesty, and now he was retreating because of something so trivial. By Sunday evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I called him. He answered after a long pause. Ethan, his voice was weary. Are you going to tell me what's wrong? I demanded, trying to keep my tone calm. There was a sigh on the other end. I don't like the way it feels, seeing you with someone else, even if it's nothing. My heart softened. Daniel, you can't ask me to hide at work and then get upset when people talk to me. That's not fair. I know, he admitted, his voice low. This is new for me. I don't know how to handle it. Then let's figure it out together, I said gently, but you have to trust me. Silence. Then finally, I do trust you. The following week he showed up at my desk. After hours. I owe you an apology, he said simply. I looked up, startled. You're right, I can't have it both ways, wanting us to be careful, but also acting like you're mine in every space. I'm learning. His eyes held mine, steady and sincere. But I don't want my insecurities to push you away. Emotions swelled in my chest. They won't, I said quietly. Not unless you shut me out. His expression softened, and he reached down, brushing his hand briefly against mine. A fleeting touch, but enough to melt the lingering tension. Indeed do. That moment I realized something. We weren't just navigating an office romance. We were building something fragile, something real, and if either of us let fear or pride win, we'd lose it before it had a chance to bloom. That Friday night, he invited me to his place again. We sat on the couch with takeout containers between us, the city lights glowing through the windows. It was quiet, peaceful, until he set his food aside and turned to me. Ethan, he began, his tone serious. What do you want from this? I blinked. What do you mean? I mean us. I know what I want, but I need to know what you're hopping for. I hesitated, fear prickling my skin. I want something real, not just stolen moments, not just a secret we hide forever. His jaw tightened. That means risk. I know. I met his gaze, my voice steady. But isn't it worth it? For a long moment he studied me, then he leaned forward, pressing his lips to my forehead with a tenderness that made my chest ache. Yes, he whispered. It's worth everything. That night I fell asleep in his arms. For the first time, the steady rhythm of his breathing lulling me into dreams. And though I didn't know what the future held, I knew this much: the line between us had already blurred, and neither of us was willing to step back. The only question was, how long could we keep walking it before the world noticed? Secrets are heavy, they weigh on the tongue, on the skin, on the space between two people who want to live openly but can't. By the time spring settled over the city, our secret was no L. The memory made my pulse race, but it also sparked a quiet anxiety in my chest. What if someone noticed? What if our secret slipped? I kept my head down all morning, buried in reports, avoiding Daniel's eyes whenever he led meetings. But every so often, across the boardroom table, our gazes met, and a silent current hummed between us. It was intoxicating and terrifying. That evening, after most of the team had left, I stayed at my desk, pretending to finish paperwork. The office had settled into a soft stillness, the skyline outside washed in twilight blues. Then a shadow stretched across my desk. You're still here, Daniel said gently. I looked up, offering a small smile. You are too. He leaned against the edge of my desk, his tie slightly loosened, his sleeves rolled up. The sight made my heart skip. I was hoping we could talk, he said. Here, I asked. His lips curved. No, upstairs. My nerves buzzed as I followed him to the top floor. His office was quiet, empty, and the door clicked softly behind us. The air shifted instantly, no prying eyes, no coworkers, just him and me. He turned, his expression softer than I'd ever seen in daylight. I hated today, he admitted. I frowned. Why? Because I had to pretend. His jaw tightened slightly. Pretend I don't want to be near you, pretend I don't watch the way you focus when you're working, pretend I didn't kiss you 2 nights ago and feel like everything changed. Heat rushed to my chest. Daniel. He stepped closer, voice dropping into something raw. Tell me you felt it too. I did, the confession slipped out breathless. I haven't stopped thinking about it. Relief flickered in his eyes. He reached out, his fingers brushing mine, a small, careful touch that still sent a jolt through me. We're playing with fire, I whispered. Then let's be careful, he replied softly. I'm not asking for a scandal, I'm asking for honesty between us. My resolve crumbled. Okay. He pulled me into his arms, not desperate or reckless but steady, grounding, a quiet promise. For a moment the world outside didn't exist. Over the next few weeks our lives became a delicate dance. At work we were nothing more than boss and employee, but in hidden moments the mask slipped. A lingering glance over coffee, a brush of fingers when he handed me a file, a midnight text that said, thinking of you. And sometimes, when late nights bled into dawn, I found myself at his apartment, sharing quiet dinners, soft laughter, and a closeness I'd never imagined. Nothing inappropriate, nothing crossing the line, just two people falling into something that felt both fragile and real. But secrets come with weight. The first crack appeared one Thursday afternoon. I was reviewing a project with Olivia when Daniel walked by. His tone was neutral, professional, but I caught the flicker in his eyes when she laughed at something I said. Later in the elevator, he stood too close, his jaw tense. You and Olivia seem friendly, he said. She's my coworker, I answered confused. She laughs at everything you say. I stared at him. Are you jealous? The elevator doors opened. He walked out without answering. That night, he didn't text. The silence stretched into the weekend, stirring frustration and longing in equal measure. He had pushed for honesty, but now he was retreating. By Sunday evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I called him. He answered after a long pause. Ethan, he said quietly. Are you going to tell me what's wrong? I asked. A soft sigh. I don't like how it feels seeing you with someone else, even when it's nothing. My heart softened. Daniel, you can't ask me to hide at work and then get upset when people talk to me. That isn't fair. I know, he admitted. This is new for me. I don't know how to handle it. Then we figure it out together, I said gently, but you have to trust me. Silence, a breath. I do trust you. The following week, after hours, he stopped at my desk. I owe you an apology, he said plainly. You're right, I can't have it both ways, wanting us to be careful and also acting like you belong to me in every room. I'm learning, slowly. His eyes held mine, sincere and steady. But I don't want my insecurities to push you away. They won't, I said quietly, not unless you shut me out. His expression softened. He brushed his hand against mine, a fleeting touch but enough to melt the last of the tension. In that moment, I realized we weren't just navigating an office secret. We were building something delicate, something real, and if either of us let fear win, we'd lose it before it ever had the chance to grow. That Friday, he invited me over again. We ate takeout on his couch, the city lights glowing softly against the windows. After a long silence, he set his food aside and turned to me. Ethan, he said, voice steady, what do you want from this? What do you mean? I mean us, I know what I want, but I need to know what you're hopping for. I hesitated, fear prickling beneath my skin. I want something real, not just stolen moments, not a secret forever. His jaw tightened. That means risk. I know. I met his gaze, but isn't it worth it? For a long moment he studied me, then he leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead, soft, tender, grounding. Yes, he whispered, it's worth everything. That night, for the first time, I fell asleep in his arms, the steady rhythm of his breathing lulling me into dreams. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew this, the line between us had already blurred and neither of us wanted to step back. The only question was, how long could we keep walking that line before the world noticed? By the time spring settled over the city, our secret was no longer just a quiet thrill. It had become a weight we carried on our tongues, on our skin, and in the spaces we wished we could share openly. Longer just a quiet thrill. It was a burden we carried into every boardroom, every coffee run, every shared elevator ride, and people were starting to notice. Whispers floated around, curious glances when Daniel lingered at my desk longer than needed, raised brows when I left late, just minutes after him. The office became a jungle of speculation, and even if no one said it outright, I could feel their questions buzzing like insects. One morning, Olivia leaned over my desk, her voice low. "You and Hart seem close lately." My chest tightened. "He's my boss," I said. She smirked, unconvinced. "Sure, just don't forget the rest of us exist when he calls you into those late-night strategy sessions." I forced a laugh, but her words lingered long after she walked away. That evening I mentioned it to Daniel while we sat in his apartment, the city lights glowing below. "People are noticing," I said quietly. He set down his wine glass, thoughtful. "Let them notice." My stomach nodded. "It's not that simple. If someone says the wrong thing to HR," his voice was firm, but his hand found mine across the couch. "I won't let anyone hurt you over this." I wanted to believe him, but part of me knew there were battles even he couldn't fight. The storm came sooner than expected. On Tuesday afternoon, an anonymous email landed in my inbox. "Does Hart give you special treatment because you're sleeping with him?" My blood ran cold. I reread it over and over, hands trembling. No name, no signature, just words sharp enough to slice through the fragile world we'd built. I barely heard the office around me. Panic clawed up my throat. Daniel noticed immediately. "Ethan, my office now." I followed him, clutching my laptop like a shield. Once the door shut, I handed it to him. He scanned the email, jaw tightening, expression darkening. "Who sent this?" I asked, voice shaking. He set the laptop down carefully. "It doesn't matter who, what matters is how we handle it." "What if they go to HR? What if the board finds out?" My words tumbled out, raw and frantic. "This could ruin everything." He stepped closer, hands firm on my shoulders. "Listen to me, I don't care what they say about me, but I care about what this does to you." His eyes burned with intensity. "If this becomes public, they'll call you names, they'll question your integrity, they'll stop." I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. "Please." The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the city below. "I don't regret us," I said finally, voice trembling, "but I'm scared, Daniel. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this." His expression cracked, vulnerability bleeding through his hard lines. "Don't say that, don't say you'll walk away." I shook my head. "I don't want to." "But if it destroys both our careers, then let it," he interrupted fiercely. "None of this means anything if I can't be honest about how I feel about you." His words hit me like a wave. Before I could respond, he pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly it felt like he was anchoring me to the ground. "Whatever happens," he whispered into my hair, "we face it together. No more hiding, no more fear." And though the world outside seemed to crash in that moment, I believed him. The next day, tension hummed through the office. Whispers curled into corners, impossible to ignore. Later, Daniel called a meeting. The entire floor gathered, curious. I stood at the back, stomach churning, as he addressed the team. "I want to remind everyone," he began, voice steady, "that this company thrives on respect and integrity. Gossip undermines that. Anonymous messages, rumors, they have no place here." His gaze swept the room, sharp and commanding. "If anyone has concerns, my door is open, but personal attacks against colleagues will not be tolerated." The meeting ended quickly, but I lingered in the back, heart pounding. His words hadn't named me, but they were close enough. When the last person filed out, I approached him. "That was risky," I said, his lips curved slightly. "Sometimes you have to remind people who's in charge, and if they figure it out anyway." He stepped closer, voice low. "I'll tell them the truth, that I fell for someone I wasn't supposed to, and I don't regret it." My chest tightened with a mix of fear and pride. That night I couldn't sleep. The email replayed in my mind, the whispers in the office, Daniel's fearless declaration. At 3 a.m., I sat on my balcony, the cool night brushing my skin. My phone buzzed, a message from Daniel. "You awake?" "Yeah, can I come over?" My heart skipped. 5 minutes later, he stood in the doorway in a hoodie and jeans, hair tousled like he hadn't slept either. Without a word, he pulled me into a hug. For the first time in days, I breathed freely. "I hate this," I admitted against his chest. "I hate the secrecy, the fear, but I can't lose you." "You won't," he murmured, "not unless you push me away, and I don't think you will." I looked up at him, throat tight. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've seen the way you look at me," he said. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb brushing my cheek. "And it's the same way I look at you." The kiss that followed wasn't gentle. It was desperate, raw, charged with every fear and every promise. When we finally broke apart, breathless, he pressed his forehead to mine. "Let them talk," he whispered. "I'm done hiding." The next morning, something inside me shifted. Walking into the office, I no longer kept my gaze down. I no longer flinched at whispers because deep down I knew Daniel was right. Whatever storm came, we would weather it together. As I glanced across the floor at him, tall and steady, eyes meeting mine with a flicker of warmth no one else noticed, I realized something profound. Love wasn't just quiet nights and whispered promises. It was standing firm when the world tried to tear you apart, and I was ready. I wasn't shrinking anymore, I wasn't running. When I entered the boardroom for the weekly leadership meeting, Daniel was already there, seated at the head of the table, as composed as ever. Our eyes met briefly, a flicker, but it steadied me. The meeting dragged on, budgets, reviews, project updates, the usual drone, but beneath the numbers and charts, tension simmered. People shifted in their seats, exchanged glances. Finally, one of the senior directors cleared her throat. "Daniel," she said carefully, "I think we need to address something that's been circulating." My stomach dropped. Daniel leaned back, calm but unyielding. "Go on." "There are rumors about you and a member of your team." Silence. His words hung heavy in the room. My palms dampened against the table, my heart hammering so loudly I thought it would give us away. Daniel's expression didn't falter. "Rumors," he repeated evenly. "Unsubstantiated talk. Do you believe them?" The director faltered. "It's not about what I believe, it's about perception. If clients catch wind, that's enough." Daniel's voice cut through the room, sharp and commanding. "I don't govern my personal life based on whispers. My work, my results, my leadership, those are facts. Gossip is not." His gaze swept the table. "Unless anyone has a legitimate concern about my performance, this conversation ends here." No one spoke. The meeting continued awkwardly, disjointed, but the message was clear. Daniel wasn't bending to rumor. Yet as I left the room, I felt the weight of eyes on me. That evening, I found myself in Daniel's apartment again. We stood by the window, city lights flickering below us, the unspoken words pressing in. "You were bold today," I said quietly. He shrugged, hands slipping into his pockets. "I built my career on boldness, why stop now?" I studied him, the tension in his jaw, the fire in his eyes. "You don't regret it, not for a second." He turned, gaze softening. "But I worry about you." "Don't." I stepped closer. I knew what I was stepping into when I kissed you. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "You think you kissed me, I remember it the other way around." I laughed, tension easing for a moment, but then my voice grew serious. "Daniel, I don't want to hide anymore, not from them, not from anyone." His expression sobered. "You're sure?" "Yes," my voice was steady. "If this is real, and it is, then I want to live it in the open, even if it costs us." For a moment he just looked at me, raw and unguarded, then he nodded slowly. "All right, no more hiding." The following week, the company hosted its annual gala, a glittering event filled with clients, investors, and employees in their finest attire. The perfect stage or the perfect disaster. I wore a simple black suit, nerves coiling tight as I entered the ballroom. Chandeliers sparkled above, music drifted from a live band, laughter and chatter filled the air. Daniel arrived not long after, commanding attention in a tailored tux, magnetic as always. I gravitated to him, eager for a moment of his time. I hovered at the edge, unsure how the night would unfold. Then, across the crowd, his eyes found mine. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just us. He crossed the room without hesitation, without disguise. When he reached me, he didn't stop at polite distance. He took my hand. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Conversations faltered. Daniel's voice carried just enough for those nearby to hear. "I'm done pretending, Ethan. If anyone has a problem with me being with the man I care about, they can take it up with me directly." My heart thundered, my throat tightened, and then applause. It started small, a few polite claps, then spread. Some smiles were genuine, others forced, but the message was clear. The sky hadn't fallen, the world hadn't ended. Daniel squeezed my hand, eyes never leaving mine. "See," he murmured, "we're still standing." Tears stung my eyes as I smiled back. The days that followed weren't perfect. Raised eyebrows, whispered comments, an awkward HR meeting, a formal disclosure form, rules about professionalism. But there was also freedom. No more hidden glances, no more sneaking out minutes apart, no more pretending our connection didn't exist. We remained careful at work, professional, but outside those walls we were simply ourselves. Dinners, walks through the park, lazy Sundays tangled in each other's arms. Slowly the whispers faded, people adjusted, life moved on. One summer evening, months later, we sat on his balcony, city alive below us. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "if someone had told me a year ago I'd be here with you, I wouldn't have believed it." I smiled, leaning into his side. "If someone had told me my boss would fall for me, I'd have laughed." He chuckled, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. "Strange, isn't it, how the best things come when you least expect them?" "Strange," I agreed softly, "and perfect." For a long time, we just sat there, the world spread before us, the weight of the past months lifting into something lighter, freer. I knew without doubt this wasn't just a fleeting spark. This was love, the kind worth risking everything for. A year later, we returned to the company gala. Same chandeliers, same glittering crowd, but everything had changed. No whispers this time, no sideways glances, just us hand in hand, walking through the room as if we belonged there, as we did. Daniel leaned down, lips brushing my ear. "Still dangerous, taking me home that night." I laughed, squeezing his hand. "Best risk I ever took." He smiled, that rare, unguarded smile that still melted me every time. As the music swelled and city lights glittered beyond the ballroom windows, I realized something simple, something true. I had taken my drunk boss home one rainy night, and instead of losing everything, I had found the one thing I never knew I needed: love.